Over the weekend, we found out that Brian Ross, who is, I would argue, a legendary investigative reporter for ABC News, got one part of a story wrong. And now that is important. I'll tell you what the consequences were and what I think is the proper outcome here, okay? And what it tells us about our media overall. So first, let's go to ABC News for their explanation. During a live special report, they explained ABC News reported that a confidant of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn said Flynn was prepared to testify that then candidate Donald Trump instructed him to contact Russian officials during the campaign. Now, they have withdrawn that story and issued a correction to it because it's very important whether Trump told Flynn to reach out to the Russians during the campaign or after the campaign. Now, after the campaign also presents some issues because he's not yet president and he might be undermining the actions of President Obama at the time before Trump takes office. And we've talked about those issues on a previous show. During the campaign would show collusion. And so people thought, oh my God, Flynn is turning evidence, which he is, by the way, on this specific issue of collusion. And he might yet still do that. We don't know for sure because it turns out the story wasn't correct, right? So then people react to this story. And this is where a lot of people are flipping out because they're like, oh my God, the beloved, cherished stock market moved based on this news. You can't move the stock market. If you move the stock market, then you've done something horrible, horrible, horrible. Now, look, if you moved it by yourself, something unrelated to anything else and caused a catastrophe and people actually lost money, that might be an interesting story. This is part of a larger story where the market is likely to move anyway. But let me show you what happened on Friday when ABC News reported that. At one point, as CNN Money reports, the Dow plunged 340 points after ABC News reported that Flynn is prepared to testify that President Trump, as a candidate, directed him to make contact with Russians. ABC later clarified the report, saying that Trump did not tell Flynn to reach out to Russia during the campaign. Now, almost everyone leaves it right there. And I've now seen on social media about 1,000 times, oh my God, he caused a 350-point drop and everybody's now bankrupt in the country. All right, well, let's actually take a look at what happened on that day because there is that 350-point drop. That part is true. Now, let me show you the whole chart, okay? So when you look at it, there's the ABC report on Flynn. Now, by the way, a lot of other things happened at that time, but let's just concede for now that it was strictly ABC News report that caused that drop, and it drops all the way down 350 points. I'm conceding all that, okay? And then you know what it does afterwards? It comes right back up. Okay, so what happened by the end? Well, as CNN Money also reports, in the end, the Dow closed only 41 points lower. Oh my God, Brian Ross, to cause a fluctuation in the market that is incredibly normal. The Dow goes up and down 41 points all the time, based on 1,000 different factors. So when you hear the 350 points, it makes it seem like, no, we're never gonna get it back. It's already gone, all that money's gone. It's not gone, it came back the same day. So to say that people have overreacted to that is a huge understatement. Yes, they are wildly overreacting. Okay, now, how did ABC News react to that? Now, I hear from the right-wing media and from Donald Trump, oh, everybody's fake news, everyone but the right wing, which lies all the time. But anyway, is fake news. See, we showed it, we proved it, Brian Ross, fake news. So that's why ABC News refused to retract it. They said, we know it's fake, but we're gonna keep it up there. Oh no, they didn't, they did the exact opposite. Isn't that interesting? Here, this is their statement. We deeply regret and apologize for the serious error we made yesterday. The reporting conveyed by Brian Ross during the special report had not been fully vetted through our editorial standards process. As a result of our continued reporting over the next several hours, ultimately we determined the information was wrong and we corrected the mistake on air and online. So, wait a minute, I thought the fake news just made stuff up and then just kept on making it up. It seems like here, when they have made a mistake, they have issued a correction and said they were wrong. If they were fake news, why would they do that? So right now there's a poll out that shows that 71% of Alabama Republicans believe that the charges against Roy Moore are just made up. He never met those women, doesn't know those women, didn't do anything with those women, just totally made up. Somebody just decided to write a piece of fiction about Roy Moore. When asked, who do you think did it? 88% of those same people said, oh, the media made it up out of thin cloth. Well, if they're making things up out of thin cloth, why would they do a retraction? Why would they ever correct the story? They would just keep on making it up. Why would they have an editorial vetting process? Why is it a big problem that Brian Ross apparently somehow went outside of that editorial process? If you're writing fiction, why bother? Oh, it's because they don't write fiction and they care deeply about getting it right. And when they don't get it right, they fix it immediately. Another part of the ABC News statement was, it is vital that we get the story right and retain the trust we have built with our audience. These are our core principles. That's right. And is it Donald Trump's core principles? That's laughable. As the New York Times showed, in the first 6 months of his administration, he had 800 comments that were provably false. Gee, I wonder who's coming out with the fake news. If you remember, it was the Trump campaign in the first place that put the fake news out during the campaign, and on purpose. So then you've got all the Breitbarts and the Gateway pundits and the Daily Callers that nonstop fabricate stories and never issue corrections. So we know who has journalistic integrity and understands what that means and who doesn't. Now, speaking of journalistic integrity, what did they do to Brian Ross? Now, they have suspended him for 4 weeks without pay. I think that's extraordinarily harsh. He says that's okay. He holds himself to a higher standard and he understands. I don't really agree. I think that, yes, of course you correct the story right away. Facts first, facts above all else. And do I think that the mainstream press from time to time tilts stories with their bias that they don't realize they even have, an establishment bias that I have pointed out? Yes, I think they do. But do they actively make things up? That's preposterous. You have to be detached from reality to think that. So how about Brian Ross specifically? Look, he's run into this issue a couple of times in his career. You want to know why? Because he's among the very, very few reporters on television who are actually trying. You would be hard pressed to name any other investigative reporters on television. There are some, but you'd be hard pressed. You know why you hear from Brian Ross all the time? Because he works hard and he has broken story after story after story. You know me, how often do I compliment the mainstream news? Not very often, but Brian Ross is one of those guys. You want to see his awards? Here, Jesus, roll through these graphics, 38 through 44, okay? I'm not gonna read you all these because it is an endless list. Keep on going. These are all the awards he's gotten. You know why he's gotten those awards? Because he tries. He's one of the very, very few people, and this is why I respect ABC News more than other organizations. They actually try to do investigative reporting and do often do it, and sometimes does a wonderful job with it. So in this storied career of decades of achievements and actual investigative reporting, Brian Ross has made a couple of mistakes. Now we're going to talk about how Brian Ross is fake news. That is preposterous. And how ABC News has reacted to this, which I actually think is a bit of an overreaction, but still shows you that they are, in fact, it proves that they are not fake news, that they deeply care about what is right and what is wrong, what is correct and what is incorrect. And this all from the right-wing criticism. Now remember what Ross is reporting about in the first place. The core of the story that is absolutely true and that everyone has covered, of course, is that Mike Flynn has said that he is guilty. He's admitted that he's guilty to the FBI for what? For lying. I don't see the right wing in outrage over Mike Flynn. Oh my God, this liar. Oh, it turns out that Donald Trump's national security advisor and a critical man in his campaign was doing fake news the whole time. He was lying to the FBI. I am so outraged. Where are you, right wing? I don't hear that outrage. All I hear is a fake outrage against Brian Ross and ABC News. I think Brian Ross is one of the best in the business, and I think that, boy, look, we don't have as much money these days yet in the digital world as the TV guys do, but he would be at the very top of my list for people to hire, and I'd be proud to work with him. And everybody makes mistakes. I think that this was one. But in the context of his career, it is a tiny speck of a story. And unfortunately, the one problem that the mainstream news does have is they take the right wing too seriously. When they attack them for being liberal media or for being fake news, there is an overreaction to those guys. And there's too much of calling everything even and everything equal. These things are not equal. 800 lies to one mistake is not equal. So stop being so defensive and actually go and do truth to power, hardcore journalism, which is what Brian Ross built his career on. You just watched the video by the Young Turks, home of the revolution. If you'd like to get a lot more than that, get the full show by becoming a member. tytnetwork.com/join.